All right, greetings. So turn up the video speed. Contrary to popular belief, the myth is dead. Housing is really not that great of an investment these days because housing costs you money in compound interest. Living super cheap when you're young and investing makes you money. Compound interest working for you. Where am I going with this? This is Freedom Phil. Like and subscribe. Let's get into it. Always turn up the video speed. And why do I say that? Because frankly, you could be watching videos faster. Why aren't you? Let's get into it. Over the course of my life, I've heard that line, usually from real estate ads. Oh, housing's the greatest store of wealth. Yeah, if you're poor and you think poor. And I was trained to think poor just like the rest of you. Most of us were domesticated for failure. For failure, casual, comfortable failure. And they're like, well, you have a family and you have kids. It's like, and they make it harder and harder for you to live a more off grid, wild lifestyle. Like when I look at the cost of living for a house and they say the average median cost in America is 400,000. No, let's just go with a real number, like $500,000. Your house is $500,000. 30-year mortgage at 6% is $38,000 and just in interest the first year. 30 grand. Could you think of better ways to spend 30 grand? Huh? Just wondering. And you do that for 30 years. Now let's go over the commuting. If you make real money, that means you're in the suburbs paying $500,000 for a decent house. Because if you're in the city, you want to talk about high price of housing. So you commute maybe an hour a day. They're like, well, my commute is an hour. Yeah, but what about the time you got to give up? Because there might be traffic. There might be and a lot of people live in the rural areas. You don't get this. When you live in a city, you have to plan for at least an hour. If your commute's 30 minutes, you better plan for at least an extra 45 minutes on that. You want to show up a little early. You want to plan for the traffic. Maybe you stop somewhere, get a cup of coffee if you made it through the gauntlet, right? So an hour each way. Let's say you're making a reasonable $25 an hour. I make 45 to 50 when I drive truck, for sitting on my ass listening to podcasts, but we'll cover that some other part of this. That's like telling yourself that in the course of 5 days, so if 25 times 2 is 50, then times 5 is 250, then 52 weeks in a year, take out 2 weeks for vacation. So 50 weeks times that, what is that, 12,500? Then add in that the average car is like $700. But let's say you and your honey poo, you have 2 vehicles, so about $500 a piece. Reasonable vehicles. There's $1,000, there's $12,000 a year. Then add in the insurance. Then add in, what do they say, $3,000 to $5,000 a year in gas, depending on what people are driving. And that's just for one. So add in that, you're well over 30 grand. So 30 grand in interest, 30 grand in payments. I hope to God, if you're making this Faustian bargain, you at the very least both have good degrees. By the way, how much did you give up to those degrees? I know some guys that go, I'll go to the military so they'll pay for it. And some of these guys I see, they get like a philosophy degree. You wasted your military benefit on that. Like really? You that's what you spent it on? They're going to give you 3 years of education. You didn't become a doctor or a chemist or something really high paying. Nope, I wanted the easy way. I went to college. I'm not talking trash about anybody that did it, but if you do see those people, you just got to Picard facepalm, the head shake. But yeah, you give up, 4 years of your life in the military and then 4 years in college. You're already 8 years into this game. And I could have had you retired by the age of easily 30, like 7 to 10 years. And the housing, the cost, the domestication, then you add in all the fees, the lifestyle crap, Yes, the design is to keep you. Yes, you'll be living comfortably, but you'll basically be running that hamster wheel for most of your life. I know that you'll be doing that because I've seen so many people do it, and all to be not exceptionally popular or anything, just to be acceptable. I find it quite entertaining. Sad, actually, really sad. So let's go to some other ways of living that are ridiculously cheap. This house, for instance, I've worked my ass off to pay it off back in the day because I was told the same lie that you were. I believed what some of my family members said, and really, I think, to be honest, no offense to these people, but they were trying to set me up to be a backup plan for different family members that moved over here. It wasn't about me. It was about everybody else not having to deal with that situation. So if you already have one family member stuck here, it makes it a lot easier. Luckily, those old people, they seem to be doing just fine, and I haven't been called on. Most of the time I've had this place, though, I've been out traveling, trucking, doing whatnot. And the reason for that is that trucking paid me really good money. And one thing I learned from the different ways I've lived is that this whole illusion that you have to make this insane amount of money to live, it's total bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. I lived in the woods in my early 20s for 4 years. I was out there living out there, and it was just perfectly chill. It was before I bought this place. It was $100 a month for rent. I had my own original house of sticks. It was a yurt that I made, and I had a wood stove. And it was, right early 2000s, so you could get some good survival gear right after Y2K happened. I had a great time. Now, what I could have done better is I should have been a trucker back then. We'll come back to that. And when I came over here, I worked with a family member, and I learned a little bit about construction, bought some tools, but not enough to really be good at it. So basically, when I got back over to the West Coast, thinking, hey, man, I got some construction skills now. No, there were too many good men, not enough good jobs. And I ended up working at Labor Ready because I couldn't find anything. It was before the recession, but the place I'm from has double the national average for unemployment. So yeah, you're competing against a bunch of other good guys, and those other good guys have families. And businesses love a guy with a family. You know why? Because you can really bend, and you won't break the man, but you'll bend him, you'll warp him, you'll treat him like shit because he's like, I gotta feed my kids, gotta pay my child support. So a guy like me, I'm out in the cold. I should have been a trucker from the day I got out of high school. Then we got the years when I was moving garbage for a living. After a couple years of really struggling to make money, I ended up getting this job moving trash for a living. Rear end loader garbage man. Jump out of the truck, run to the back, dump the cans, push the dumpsters up against there, latch them in, dump it. Got a lot of Christmas tips, to tell you what. I started off an S10 Blazer, gave away my Siberian Husky, really broke me inside because I literally love that dog. But I couldn't afford rent. I couldn't really make that situation work out. So when I did that garbage job, I ended up starting with an S10 Blazer that I lived in. Then I upgraded to a half-ton Chevy, put a wood stove in it, solar panels on top. And eventually, when that Chevy had a milkshake in the engine, it was still running, but I knew it was going to eventually give out. I gave that van away after getting my gigantic GMC value van, the battle van. And that allowed me, all the way I was living at the time, allowed me not to pay rent. Because the rent would have eaten up the majority of my paycheck, even if I was making good money moving. I was making a good living moving garbage because nobody else would do it. And here's the thing. That particular town on the West Coast, I mean, it's been so long, Port Townsend. A lot of people smoke pot there. So they're like, I didn't smoke pot. I needed the job. And they're like, do you want the job? And they trained me. I'm like, fuck yeah, let's do this. And for 4 years, I moved trash for a living, and I paid off my house, living in my van. I started out I was a month behind when I took that job. Then I got ahead, got back in on payments. And then after that, eventually I stored up a little bit of a nest egg, emergency plan. And then I started making double payments. So the payment plus $500 off the mortgage every month. And that on 50,000, that's effectively 1% of every month. Eventually I was making double payments, where it was like the payment plus $1,000. And I was paying off a house before most of my friends had even bought one. And they couldn't fathom it. And along the way, that van I've showed you outside, the party van, that van I got for $700, and I had to put a little work into it, but it's been a really good van for me. People are like, why don't you get a new vehicle? I look at that van sometimes in the parking lot like a man who loves his wife. I look over it and think of all the good times I've had, and I'll probably fucking cry when that van finally fails me. Because if I can fix it, I might do it. I might even be that guy where I'm like, if I can get the engine rebuilt, I might even do it because I've had so many good times in that van. But living the way I lived allowed me to do incredible things. Let me tell you the creme de la creme. Being a rear end loader garbage man, I jump out. I say hi to the people. How you doing? A few people I even have talk to. I used to get, there was a few places that during Christmas would give me $100 tips. I'm not kidding. The dumpster in Port Ludlow and the guy at Port Whitney, a lot of 5s, a lot of 20s, a lot of trays of cookies. If the crows didn't get to them first, they put it on top of the can and the crows get to them like, damn you, you birds. But I had 1 month where it was a triple check month. So you have, how the Fridays or whatever day you get paid to work out to three of them. This happens twice a year, by the way. And so you get the triple checks plus the Christmas tips. So I got like $1,000 to $1,200 plus triple checks. I wrote a check, my payment plus $2,500. $2,500. I paid off 5% of my mortgage in 1 month. Ain't nobody did what I did back then. And if I'd known what I could do when I got into trucking, the trucking is even better. And that won't exist forever. I understand one day everything will be automated, all the vehicles will be driving, but let's be honest about this. All it's going to take is one really bad accident, and the women of America will be like, I don't want my kids in a school bus next to that motherfucking thing. No, you got to fix this shit. You're going to have to go a long ways. One bad accident, dead families, it'll be over. I'm just telling you the truth of how it'll work, because America, we're that way. It ain't like the CCP. I got into trucking after taking a couple of years off after I paid off this house. And by the way, there were 3 years that I didn't bother to visit this house. 3 years, 3 whole ass years. Came back to visit the family over here, get my car out of the garage, a little 93 blue Ford Escort hatchback. I called it Grandma because it looked like a granny mobile. I had so much fun with that vehicle. 35 miles to the gallon. You could fit four fully grown men. Put you could have a little rocket box on top for the climbing shovels and the waders and all the buckets in the back. Oh yeah, it was a good little car. And the point of it is that the way I did things allowed me to pay off my house even faster. Now, I know this is a long deviation. And by the way, if you're watching this at regular speed, you should have been watching this at least at 1.75. So we could get to this point faster. By the way, once again, like and subscribe. If I think about all the years that I spent working to pay off this house, the 6 years, 4 years is really what paid it off. But those 2 first years in the dark ages, struggling. Because I came out of what I would refer to, living in the woods was kind of like the golden age antiquity to some degree, And then it went to the fall of mankind, which was me buying this house, me moving over to this state, me buying this house. And then the first age of progress, like man and his technology, like the age of beauty and magic was the first age, back when I lived in the woods, Lady Moon Project. And then the dark ages, because I was really struggling back then. It wasn't drugs or anything like that. I just couldn't find a fucking job to save my life. And this actually really got me onto the line of thinking where it's like, why should I support people that wouldn't bother to fucking, when people say hometown, blur, 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 you mean the same people that if I was on fire wouldn't bother to piss on me? My own people. And then the first stage of progress, I wasn't getting ahead because I was doing what I was told or what everybody. I did something completely fucking different. I owned a house in another state that if I'd thought about it, I probably would have had it rented out, but the wiring was old. I didn't want to risk somebody burning down the fucking house, lawsuits and all that shit. Also, my family had a ton of crap stored here. They stored furniture from their vacation rentals that just kind of would pop into my fucking house. Eventually I had to get all that crap out of there. But doing things differently really got me ahead. But if I'd been a trucker way back then, no rent, no utilities, and yes, the wages were less. These days, I could go to a good company. I could be making $100K per year. And some of these companies, after you're well vested, you're making a 10% match. I'm not kidding. So 100,000, 10%, then 10%, live in a state that has no state income tax, effectively with no state income tax, and your vesting basically covers what you would have paid federally, and your vesting actually reduces what you'd pay. You're talking to somebody who would, between the vesting, you basically are maintaining all of your wealth. So you're living off, what, $5,000 a year? Compound interest. Let's look at it from this perspective. If you had 100,000 making you 10%, I know people that make 15, but like a good safe 8 to 10%. What is that? 8,000 a year? 10,000 a year? Yeah. When you can live off next to nothing. So we come back to, is housing really a great investment? For the single person, definitely not. No. For someone that wants to have kids, it's questionable. Because if you want to have kids, if you don't outright own your house, you are just robbing yourself. And you're robbing yourself of your time, which could be time to better Better educate and take care of your children. More time to be a mother, a father, a whatever. If you are grandparents and in any which way you can help those children learn how to, do math, do science, do all this. This is one of the things I really can't stand about a lot of American parents. We do this divide and conquer strategy. One thing I think is kind of beautiful about some of what I see going on in the Native American communities is where they're trying to take back their culture. The elders that are still alive, that know the language, that know the plants, know their way of life. They are really like, hey kids, come on, come over here. Hey, yeah, parents, go to work. We're going to educate the kids. We're going to teach them how to speak. We're going to teach them how to be. We've done this for thousands of years across the damn planet. We just gave it up the other day because somebody told us, do you want new things? Do you want more flashy crap? It is better to have a house of lesser quality that basically you outright own than have a nice house that you'll never pay off. It's better to have time with your family and your children. I've met people in my travels doing van life that have like the full school bus. And maybe you'll have a few people that all get together, between their RVs and their school buses. So you have a bunch of kids running around being kids. And they all do their homeschooling, And by the way, for people who say, oh, you can't really educate your kids homeschooling. You know what you've just admitted if you say that to somebody? You're saying that you don't actually have an education yourself. You, college educated person, can't even educate your own child with basic mathematics. Are you fucking kidding me? A computer can do that. Don't give me this crap that people are autodidactical. Some people are easily educatable on their own. But the truth is, anybody can learn something if they just sit down and fucking read it. And if you can't, by the way, when it comes to college, if you can't sit down and study your courses at home, why the hell should you go to college for? You can't even pay attention on your own volition. Why would you pay attention if you're paying for it? Let's get into how you can be a lot cheaper. I own a piece of land out on the West Coast, on the Hoods Canal. A little community there, I pay about $500 a year in taxes for it, and then a little over $220 for the 2 lots that are connected for the HOA. Let me put this in perspective. Here's what I get. I don't have to punch a well because they have wells there that you can, a public well for the community. So you want to fill up your water for your RV or whatever, ride your bike over there, fill up your jugs. No problem. A lot of guys will have those little razors and stuff like that. Kind of a, cabin/camping community. My community has its own boat ramp out to the water. We have a couple parks in the community. Then you have the, the shellfish. Every year they plant a bunch of shellfish on the mudflats. So we have our own private shellfish farm where you can just go out and get food. It costs me under $60 per month for that. Now, let's just say I get a piece of land down there south of Mesquite, Nevada, Moapa Valley, somewhere out there, somewhere in the wasteland enough to where I'm going to see some little cat-sized foxes. That's my rule. There got to be some, they're called San Juan King kit foxes. They're our version of the fennec. I love it. They're so beautiful. I love it when I see them. I like when I hear the owls. I like the quiet. I like maybe a few crickets here and there. And sometimes in the distance, you hear the coyotes doing coyote things. And occasionally you see the incredible satanic bellowing of a fucking cow. When they're you ever hear a bull and they're calling out for the females? Yeah. You're like, what the hell is that? Oh, that's a cow. And the cow looks at me, what? Trying to get pussy. A piece of land out there in the wasteland, like when you're talking, I did the measurements on the taxes and we're talking $77 a year. Now, what's it cost for me to make electricity when I build my own apparatus? Oh, well, the cost of building it. But then basically it's free after that. Just take care of it and maintenance it. And then, a little bit of propane. If I'm using wood, like a rocket stove, I was out walking anyways. Hey, there's some wood at the base of a bush. Water, I can get that for free anywhere. Or maybe I would even go as far as if it was my own piece of property, I'd punch my own well. But likely I just go into town. When I'm in town, I just fill it up some public place. Like if I had a gym membership with showers, I would just fill up my water there while I'm there. Like I get my exercise, get my sweat, ride my bike from just outside of town, whether it's an e-bike or if you're on flat land, you better be pedaling. I'm just saying, if it's on flat land, why ain't you pedaling? It's just pretty pathetic the way people don't know how to pedal anymore. But no, man. When I look at the situation, the cost of living off the grid is almost nothing. So we take it back to, what if you were to take that same amount of money that you were pissing away on car payments, overpriced house, lifestyle, and when you're young, if you're in the military, you take that money and you invest it into money that's making you money. So like, S&P or whatever. I'm not going to give any stock advice, but my point is something that's got at least 8 to 10%, maybe more. What if you were to do that when you're young? Well, at $500,000 alone, that would be $50,000 a year. That's why I recommend live in the truck. Like, do van life, do truck driving, live in a share room, live with your parents, and just make it understood. If your parents are really good quality people, they understand. You're not trying to keep up with the Joneses. You're not trying to be like, bro, look at my car. Look, yeah. You're like, yeah, no, I'm showing how you're making progress. Your parents can see that you're the son or daughter that is like, you're not going to have to come back and ask for help. In fact, you're going to be so well off because they put the investment into you and you put the investment into yourself that you would be some days like, oh, no, yeah, I got extra room, ma, pa, or whatever. Yeah, just live in that extra room because you have probably an extra house or two if you choose to, because you could pay cash for them. Midwest, get a little cheap place that buy. This is something a lot of you could do, actually. If you have the game together, the 7 to 10 years, retirement by 30, you could literally just buy an extra house in the town and be like, yeah, I bought an extra house. We'll just kind of do a little work on this and you guys can live here. I can walk over to check on you. Wouldn't that be nice? Instead of an old folks home, you got your family nearby. Instead of your kids, you having to commute and losing all that time where you should have been spending your time with your kids could walk to school. You could walk them to school. I'm living in one of those small towns in the Rocky Mountains where that is literally the case. Where you walk 3 blocks that way, we got across the highway, there's the local grocery store. There's a first school over here. You walk over 3-4 blocks that way, maybe 5 blocks, and you're at the local high school. 4 blocks away is the library. You could bike. It's flat too. You can bike to everything. You go right outside of town. I mean, if you had a bicycle with a canoe attachment, where you pull the canoe behind you, you could literally just bike right out to the canal, to the reservoir. Have a little electric Minn Kota motor, maybe have oar locks. Yeah, you could be living the good life in a lot of America a whole hell of a lot cheaper than what they're telling you to do. And the point is, if you take the early game and live super cheap, and you invest into yourself, yes, your life could be exponentially better. You don't need to go to college. And if you do go to college, get a real degree. You don't need to be a genius to do this. You just need to understand basic mathematics and how to invest. And I'm not talking about, yo, bro, I know this stock tip. Yo, bro. No, I'm saying just basic. Like, look, most of the guys that are like dude bro investors, some of them get good returns. When you do the math, though, you would have been better off going with the S&P or some other investment, some other basic investment. I'm just saying. But yeah, when people tell you housing's a great store of wealth, let's cover the last one. Because I don't believe it is in the slightest. I don't believe it's a good investment in the slightest. You live in a house your whole life. So let's just say you built that house when you're young. Well, 40 years later, there's going to be a lot of updates that need to happen. You may even need to do some wiring work. But let's say you built that house when you're retiring. Well, 20 years later, you're still going to have to do a little work. And if you sell that house, sure, you got a giant pile of money. But where are you going to live now? That's the thing I got a problem with when they try to tell you, like, you paid how many years to pay off this house? And now you're just sticking around in it because you're like, well, this is where we live. And, where are we going to go otherwise? I'd get an RV personally, and I'd be RVing, I go 10 miles a day, park on the side of the road next to the river, or go up to the hills, go down to the wasteland where a lot of the other old people go, I'm just saying, like, this whole idea, it's not a great store of wealth. It's really not, because if, like, say your house sold for 600,000, or let's say $500,000, and $500,000, once again, times 10%, that's 50,000 a year. That's literally when you don't have to commute or do anything. 50,000 is a lot of goddamn money, especially when you can live off 5 to 10,000 a year. The rest of it basically going back into it. And of course, as you get older, you're going to have health costs and all that. So let's just say 15,000 a year. then effectively you got 35,000 a year on top of what you had before, and it just keeps on building and building. Eventually, it's more and more and more. The smart people invest when they're young, then buy a house. But the horny people buy a house and stay poor their whole lives. Anyhow, this is Freedom Phil. Like and subscribe. If you got through this at regular speed, I don't even know how you did it. This has been 25 minutes. You should have been watching this at least at 1.75 to 2 times the speed, because let's be real about it, that's the way you should be watching videos. Like and subscribe. Feel free to share it. Later.